What we're looking at right here on the screen is phase 1 of the Middle East peace plan, or the Trump peace plan, that was actually released on June 22nd of 2019. And what we're looking at here is a plan which is filled with references to the Palestinians, but very little reference to Israelis. That's just a bird's eye view observation of the way that this has been framed out. Now, once again, this is the economic component. It's the economic component of the Trump peace plan. There are two aspects of it, the economic component and the political component. I'm going to go to an article now which on Israel National News has the following headline: Trump reportedly to make final decision this week when to release deal of the century. American and Israeli officials say Trump to decide this week whether or not to release deal of the century plan before Israel's election. Okay. Now, the date on this for American readers begins with the day, the month, and then the year. So you've got 19/1/20, the 19th of January, 2020. This article, in other words, just came out today. And so with respect to the release of the political component of the deal of the century, that could be announced, that could be determined as early as this week. Well, let's go ahead and take a look back at the economic component. One thing that you will notice in going through the economic component is there are references to governance, Palestinian governance. In fact, that is in section 4. If I click on that, it'll zip right over to it, and we have enhancing Palestinian governance. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that right there and then click over to the next tab. And what we have right here is Peace to Prosperity, the economic plan. Once again, this whole thing is based upon the assumption of the existence of a Palestinian people. Basically, what you have here is statehood without using the phrase Palestinian state, okay, or without using the phrase two-state solution. But for all intents and purposes, what we're looking at here is you've got property rights, legal and tax framework, capital markets and monetary policy, international trade, and foreign direct investment. This is all, mind you, under Palestinian governance. It's all under the framework of Palestinian governance. Also, under the framework of Palestinian governance, you have presented in this economic component judicial independence, accountability, transparency, civil society. Once again, it's looking an awful lot like a Palestinian state without using the phrase Palestinian state or two-state solution anywhere in the economic component of this plan. I would like to draw your attention to a video which was posted 6 months ago by William Koenig, a White House press correspondent of some 18 plus years.
I made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. I will establish my covenant with Isaac for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make of you a multitude of people, and give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. For I will take you from among the nations, and gather you out of all countries, and bring you into your own land. And they shall not sell or exchange any of it. They may not alienate the best part of the land, for it is holy to the Lord. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. It shall be in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. No world leader has the right to divide the covenant land of Israel. Those who attempt to will face significant consequences.
And let us hope that this Conference of Madrid will mark the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the Middle East.
إن سوريا تسعى إلى السلام العادل والشامل مع إسرائيل كخيار استراتيجي.
My vision is two states, living side by side in peace and security. Again, I applaud Prime Minister Sharon for making a decision that has really changed the dynamics on the ground, and it really provided hope for the Palestinian people.
I said that the United States believes that negotiations should result in two states, with permanent Palestinian borders with Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. The only way for Israel to endure and thrive as a Jewish and democratic state is through the realization of an independent and viable Palestine.
The President is very committed to achieving a solution here that will be able to bring prosperity and peace to all people in this area.
It's a great honor to be with the King of Jordan.
Hurricane Maria, it blasted Puerto Rico today with sustained winds of 155 miles an hour.
The watchmen shall lift up the voice. With the voice together shall they sing, for they shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion. They, the watchmen, shall see an exact agreement between the prophecy and the event, the promise and the performance. They shall see how they look one upon another, eye to eye, and be satisfied that the same God spoke the one and did the other.
Under fair use, we're going to take a look at this article that appeared on Zionist Organization of America on February 28th of 2018. It's filed under News and Press Release. Zionist Organization of America, or ZOA. If reports about Trump administration's peace plan are true, it's a disaster. Very strong headline. Let's take a look to see why it is expressed in such strong terms. Zionist Organization of America, or ZOA, President Morton A. Klein released the following statement. The Zionist Organization of America is deeply concerned about the recent Arab media reports. Again, remember this was a 2018 article. The recent Arab media reports outlining contents of the not yet released Trump administration peace plan. If the reported provisions of the plan are true, the Trump administration's deal of the century would be the disaster of the century. I'm not going to say air quotes every time I read a phrase that's in quotes. I'm just going to read it. President Trump's reputation as Israel's greatest friend would be destroyed. The Saudi newspaper, Asharq al-Awsat, an important Middle East news source, quoting knowledgeable Arab diplomatic sources, reported today that the Trump administration peace deal would include the following horrors: recognition of a Palestinian Arab state with its capital in eastern Jerusalem and including expanded areas in Judea, Samaria, beyond the areas currently under Palestinian Authority control. Such a state would be a Hamas, Iran, PA terrorist state, place Israel's largest population centers in the line of rocket fire, and would throw 100,000 or more Jews out of their homes in Judea, Samaria, likely causing great unrest in Israel. This would create a Gaza-like situation on Israel's longest border, namely, Israel gives up land and uproots Jews from their homes, synagogues, and communities, and receives rocket fire in return. The 10,000 Jews expelled from Gaza were a national trauma and disaster. Some of the victims of the Gaza expulsion are still unemployed and unsettled, and families were destroyed. Expelling Jews from their homes because they are Judea, Samaria Jews is inhumane and immoral. President Trump should not press an agreement that demands this. Dividing up Jerusalem, as occurred from 1948 to 1967, when Jordan illegally seized and occupied the eastern portion of Jerusalem, the real Jerusalem of history and the Bible, would subject Jews in the western part of the city to constant fire and peril, as occurred during those 19 years. Ending Jewish sovereignty over and internationalizing the Old City of Jerusalem. The Old City is the actual biblical Jerusalem and the heart of the Jewish people's faith for thousands of years. It is never mentioned in Islam's Quran. Judaism's holiest places, however, including the Western Wall and the Temple Mount, the home of the biblical temples, are all located in the Old City. Only under Jewish Israeli sovereignty have all faiths had access to their holy places of worship in Jerusalem. It is a pipe dream to believe that an international entity would secure Jewish and Christian access to our holy sites. The last time internationalizing Jerusalem was proposed in 1947 as part of the UN partition plan, Arabs seized the Old City and the rest of eastern Jerusalem, murdered and expelled the Jews from their homes that Jerusalem's majority Jewish population had been living in for centuries, dynamited and destroyed 58 Jewish synagogues, denied Jews access to the Jewish people's holy sites, and commenced persecuting Jerusalem's Christians. There is no credible reason for thinking that Israel ceding authority in this part of Jerusalem to any other power or authority would produce anything other than the endangerment and annulment of legitimate Jewish rights, properties, and interests in the city. Trying such a disastrous plan again is likely to lead to the same result or worse. A plan that carves up Jerusalem and removes Israeli sovereignty from the Old City and the rest of Jerusalem is unimaginable and a monumental mistake. Giving a Palestinian Arab state $40 billion. That $40 billion would likely be used exactly the same way that Iran is using its $150 billion from the catastrophic Iran deal to foment terror, and exactly the same way that the Palestinian Authority uses the foreign aid it receives now to give lifelong pensions, homes, and honors to terrorists who murder Jews. Moreover, we already know that a vast amount of the international aid that is given to Mahmoud Abbas' Palestinian Authority has consistently gone to illegal armaments, terrorist groups, and hate education, including $355 million a year to terrorists and their families. There is no earthly reason to think this will magically stop upon the creation of a Palestinian Arab state run by the same corrupt, pro-terror, anti-peace Palestinian Arab leadership. Also, to the best of our knowledge, the plan does nothing to end the PA's nonstop incitement and payments to Palestinian Arabs to murder Jews, and does not require rescission of the PA law that authorizes such payments. This plan does not entail the renaming of schools, streets, and sports teams named after Jew killers. No peace plan is workable with a Palestinian Arab government that incites and pays for murdering Jews and is thoroughly committed to Israel's destruction. The PA must show for at least 1 year that they have abolished and rescinded such odious, pro-terror, anti-peace policies before a peace plan is offered. Further, the plan could become even worse. According to PA Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki, European Union countries are working to convince the Trump administration to make this terrible plan even more favorable to the Palestinian Arabs. See Trump peace plan could recognize Palestinian state report by Khaled Abu Tawameh. Times of Israel, February 28, 2018. EU countries trying to persuade U.S. to amend peace plan, Palestinian Foreign Minister says. I-24 News, February 28, 2018. The only two supposed benefits that Israel would obtain under this deal of the century, if it is true, would in reality give Israel nothing. The first supposed benefit to Israel is that the Palestinian Arabs supposedly would give up or not implement a right of return. However, the Palestinian Arabs have no right of return. UN Security Council Resolution 242 in 1967 simply called for a just settlement of the refugee problem. This was a two-way provision that also applied to securing a just settlement for the close to 1 million Jews who were driven out of their homes in Arab lands. Moreover, descendants are not refugees. There are only approximately 30,000 real Palestinian Arab refugees alive today. A just settlement does not mean that grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Arabs who left Israel at the behest of the Arab League in 1947, when the Arabs went to war against Israel, refusing the initial two-state partition recommendation, can now move in and overrun Israel. In a just settlement of the refugee problem, both Arabs and Jews would receive financial compensation. The close to 1 million Jews who were expelled from their homes and businesses throughout the Arab world are owed far more than may be due the 360,000 Arabs who left Israel. However, Zoa understands that the plan calls for the compensation of Palestinian Arabs, but mentions nothing about compensating the far greater claims of the greater numbers of Jewish refugees compelled from Arab lands. Further, the Palestinian Arabs have received benefits from UNRWA for the past 70 years that may well far exceed their claims. I'm going to scroll back up to a call-out body of text here that really captures the essence of one of the salient points in the article. The reported plan amounts to Israel giving up tangible land and sovereignty in return for empty promises, and entails the establishment of a terror regime in Israel's heartland. Worse, as we have previously demonstrated, there is no way such a state could be demilitarized. No sovereign state has previously either agreed to or been successfully compelled to demilitarize, nor could this be enforced.